Hi, I'm Jan, and today I'm going to show you how to automate one of the most tedious processes in procurement, three-way invoice reconciliation in dropshipping scenarios. We'll walk through a real-world example with actual documents, and I'll demonstrate how Nordoon's AI agents can handle the complexity that typically requires hours of manual work. So first, let's understand the business model. In dropshipping, you have three parties involved in a single transaction. So here's how it works. A customer places an order and pays the retail price. The supplier forwards that order to a manufacturer and pays wholesale. Then the manufacturer ships directly to the customer. The supplier never touches the goods, so they're essentially a middleman handling the commercial relationship. So this is a capital efficient, so no warehousing costs and no inventory risk is involved, but it creates complex documentation scenario. So let's make it concrete. We'll introduce our three companies. Medcare Solutions in Boston, they're buying medical supplies. Pharma Supply America, they're in Chicago, the supplier and the distributor. And then we have Safe Contain Manufacturing in Houston, the actual manufacturer. So the Medcare orders biohazard sharps containers. Pharma Supply confirms the order, but Safe Contain actually ships directly to Medcare. Let's look at the individual documents that are involved. So first we have purchase order. This is sent from Medcare to Pharma Supply. We have 5 line items, including 288 cases of Sharps containers at $52.80 per case. Then we have an order confirmation. So Pharma Supplies will look at the purchase order and confirm that they can deliver it. They have a note that biohazard Sharps container will be drop shipped directly. And then we have after the products are sent, this Safe Contain, they send a packing slip. And here we see that basically this is a partial delivery. So only one item from the purchase order is being sent. And then we have the invoice. The invoice is sent from Pharma Supply to Medcare. So these are here the main challenge is we have to do a three-way matching. So because there are three companies, they might be referring to different parts in different ways. So more concretely, if we compare the packing slip and the purchase order, we see that biohazard Sharps container has this SQ for Medcare, this SQ for Pharma Supply, and it has a completely different SQ for the Safe Contain company. The descriptions are also a bit different. So Safe Contain Sharps box 1 liter and Biohazard Sharps container 1 liter. So they're not exactly matching. And one additional complication, the Safe Contain is talking about individual units, so 34,560 pieces, but here we're talking about cases. So we see that there's also a unit mismatch. An additional complication is that the packing slip contains several purchase order numbers, because this is also it's based on the communication between supplier and manufacturer. So particular purchase order number is actually not relevant for Medcare because it just happens between Safe Contain and Pharma Supply. And here we see in this example somebody in Medcare warehouse wrote the actual purchase order number on the packing slip. So this means that there's a challenge of resolving purchase order numbers here. Now imagine an AP clerk matching invoices against all of this every day with hundreds of invoices. Now let's switch to Nordoon and show how we can handle this complex scenario. Let's look at the delivery note agent. So this is where we solve some of the issues that I mentioned that arise. First, we'll take a look at all the candidate numbers that look like purchase order numbers, and we'll resolve them against the known purchase order numbers in our database. And this way will identify the correct purchase order number. So, and not some internal number between the supplier and manufacturer. Then we'll extract some general information data and bring the purchase order information to our context for the agent to work with. And then the main step is the packing list step. So we'll find the SQ code that's written on the delivery note and the item name and description. And then we'll use that to resolve. So based on the known purchase order and all the descriptions, so to do an AI-based fuzzy matching and identify the correct parts. We'll also bring in the purchase order unit of measure. So this is our standard unit for this particular item. And we'll also find the unit of measure used on the packing slip. And then we'll also get the unit of measure conversions data and use it to normalize the quantity so that it's in the same units as on the purchase order. So finally, we'll aggregate if there are multiple, let's say, serial numbers or something like that, so that we'll just have one quantity. Now let's also take a quick look at the purchase or the invoice agent. So we have general information that involves supplier information, but it also brings in what are what's the purchase order number, what are the payment terms on the purchase order, what are the payment terms on the invoice, what are the VAT numbers. Then we also bring in check if this invoice has already been processed. So look at our internal records if for this particular invoice. Then we also bring in context the supplier bank accounts which will be used to check against the extracted supplier bank accounts. Then also we can bring in the delivery note. This is the main ingredient for three-way matching. Then we process all the items on the invoice. Here we see that we are normalizing them to Medcare SQ code. And the main part, we bring in the purchase order quantity and the delivery note quantity. So we compare the normalized quantity with delivery note quantity and purchase order quantity. And if anything doesn't match, we create a validation error. The normalized quantity validation is set up like this. So it's just looking at the previous fields and making sure that things match exactly. Now let's quickly look at the memory tables involved, which are what powers these validations. We have known suppliers. In this case, we know what their VAT numbers should be. We have known purchase orders. So we know what the unit of measure is and what the quantities, what the confirmed dates are, what the supplier SQs are called for our SQ codes. Then we have delivery notes. This table involves the normalized, so the quantities in the unit of purchase order, and we have our own SQ codes stored. Then we have, let's see, we have unit conversions. This helps us, let's say, convert between cases and individual units for a particular SQ code. And then we have supplier bank accounts so that we can validate the routing numbers and account numbers. And then we have invoices. Invoices are used to track, to store what things we already processed. And all these tables can be in sync with the ERP system through our integration layers. And the last piece in configuration are the flows. So these are configurations that tell how our system is connected to the outside world. So in this case, the invoice flow involves several things. So first we specify how the invoices will be ingested by our agent. In this case, this happens when an email is sent to the inbox of this agent, but it could also be, let's say, if the agent can sit directly on a mailbox of an employee and automatically process everything, or it could be fed by REST API or some other mechanism. Then we have what happens when an invoice is confirmed that everything is okay. So there are two things that happen. One is that we update memory, so we remember that this invoice was processed, and then there are actions that happen. So what happens if the invoice is okay or it's not okay? In both cases, we can send an email. So once we notify the supplier that something is not okay on the invoice, and in the other case, if everything is okay, we can send the email confirming that it will be booked. Now I'll show you what happens when an invoice is processed. So in this case, we get a screen like this. This is the human in the loop screen, where we have the complete overview of everything that happened. So on the right hand side, we have the invoice, and on the left hand side, we have the most relevant things that were processed. And we also see various things like all the validations that passed. So we know that the supplier was resolved, the supplier VAT is okay, the invoice is not a duplicate, we have checked all the bank account details, we have a delivery note, the items, everything checked out, so the quantities on the PO and delivery note match, so the PO is present, and we also check that the payment terms are consistent. So the PO specified these payment terms, and on the invoice there were these payment terms, and these are compatible. After I click confirm, the actions will be triggered that we configured in the flow. And we get an automated email that says we are writing to confirm that the invoice has been accepted. It was verified against our purchase order, and the payment will be processed. So this is the email also includes the data that were processed and the original invoice. So in this video, we have demonstrated how easy it is to set up a full automation for the drop shipping scenario. The documents can be processed the moment they arrive. They are validated against business rules, and they're actioned automatically. Exceptions can be routed based on particular rules, and this means that we have demonstrated how to automate a very time-consuming, usually manual process. And so that's it, and thanks for watching.